Welcome to Overwhelmed to Overcomer podcast with coach, encourager, and strategist Anna McLaughlin. If you're a Christian woman who has big dreams rooted in an even bigger God, but most days those dreams feel completely out of reach, trust me, I get it. As a homeschooling mama of 4, entrepreneur, investor, and all around wearer of many hats, I am right there with you. And yet the Lord invites us to live out our God-given purpose now in the midst of the madness. So let's explore together how we can know our calling and walk in it today with clarity, with courage, with each other. It's time for you to live the life you love and love the life you live. Let's do this thing. Okay, friend. I have a very simple invitation for you today. It just kind of pressed on my heart, and I was like, you know what? My kids are listening to Veggie Tales at vast volumes in the other room. I don't even know if you might be able to hear it through the floorboards. That's how loud it is. And I thought I would just take a minute away and speak to you, speak to myself, to invite you into this reminder to love the things you love for what they are. I believe I've talked in here in the past about my words for the year. A couple of years ago, the Lord gave me the Beatles song. The Beatles are very precious to me. I have all of my dad's old Beatles records. I used to blast I Want to Hold Your Hand at full volume in 5th grade. Yes, I was a child of the 80s, but my whole life was lived in the 60s in those days. Now, here I am in the 2020s living life in the 80s because I married an 80s man. I'm not mad about it. I love that music as well. And the song was Let It Be. That song was so precious to me already because of my father and because I just love it. I just love the easy vibe, just the kind of settling in of the music and the lyrics. Even though they talk about I guess Imagine's the one where he's like, what if there's no God? What if there's no religion? So we'll set that aside. But in that year, so often, and so often since then, the Lord's just invited me, let it be. Just let it be. Let things be as they are. Let people be as they are. In our last solo episode, we talked a little bit about letting those tricky relationships kind of settle, owning our part, leaning into what we can, setting the boundaries we need to set, and really giving people room to be themselves. And I'm going to invite you to a layer deeper of that. I didn't realize it at the time, but there's another place to go, which is how can we love people and love things for exactly as they are, really lifting judgment. Because here's one of the things that I've noticed. We kind of have this like there's this sense of, well, there's holy and good stuff, and then there's just like ordinary stuff, and that's not as important. And I was first invited into an alternative way of looking at this by a wonderful theologian that I'm going to call Henry Nouwen. I believe that he would pronounce his name Henri. He's Dutch. Catholic theologian, writes precious stories. I believe we've talked precious books, thinking he's been gone for a number of years now. I believe we've talked about him in Return of the Prodigal Son, his work Return of the Prodigal Son, which was about the painting by Rembrandt, but I don't even remember when we talked about it. And he talked about a moment of reconnecting with a former student. They chatted, they talked, they laughed, they shared stories, they shared updates, and over time the conversation starts to die down and dwindle and gentle into silence. They sat in one another's presence for an extended period of time. And then almost, and in a way, and he describes it as even more intimate than the deepest of conversations, because it was just this full permission. You be as you are, I will be as I am, and we'll just enjoy being in one another's presence. At the end of the time together, they looked at one another, embraced. And Nouwen said, from this point forward, let every step between us be holy ground. When we show up truly loving the other person or the other thing for what they are, it imbues that thing with holiness. Because love comes from God. God is love. And so the ordinary can actually become a tool in the hands of the Father when it is loved for what it is, when it is offered to the Lord for his use. Okay. And I'm going to bring this plane down a little bit. I'm kind of talking a little bit ethereal right now, but we're going to start with a poem that gives the title to this podcast. And it's called Hyla Brook. One of my favorite authors, Robert Frost. I took a poetry class at the end of high school where the whole entire class was his work. Here's Hyla Brook. By June, our brooks run out of song and speed. Sought for much after that, it will be found either to have gone groping underground and taken with it all the Hyla breed that shouted in the mist a month ago, like ghosts of sleigh bells in a ghost of snow, or flourished and come up in jewel weed, weak foliage that is blown upon and bent, even against the way its waters went. Its bed is left a faded paper sheet of dead leaves stuck together by the heat, a brook to none but who remember long. This, as it will be seen, is other far than with brooks taken otherwhere in song. We love the things we love for what they are. If I remember correctly, this was in my little senior paragraph in my yearbook. We love the things we love for what they are. It's a line that's come back to me so often over the years. It's so, and the reason for that is, I think, it's so tempting to look at the things that come across our lives from this place of utility. What does it give me? What does it do for me? And here comes Robert Frost with a poem about a brook that isn't even a brook anymore. It's dried up. Remember what it says? I'm pulling the book out right now. A brook to none but who remember long. Its bed is left a faded paper sheet of dead leaves stuck together by the heat. It can't even give you its own, like, it's literally the what it was designed to be. There's none of that there. There's no water. You can't have a brook without water. And yet he honors it for what it is, even when what it is completely without utility. It can't refresh, it can't cool, it can't house fish, it can't bathe, it can't wash, it can't do anything anymore. It's just a faded paper sheet. What does it say? A faded paper sheet of dead leaves stuck together by the heat. All we have is the echo and the shadow. A few weeks ago, probably a couple months ago now, we had a wonderful guest on, Joshua Pauling, and we had a conversation about technology and how to navigate the various trade-offs that it presents us in our current age and also historically has always presented us. A fascinating book that he wrote called Are We All Cyborgs Now? I highly recommend getting it because it helps us wrestle through these issues. And it also presents us with an important thing to understand, which is it has always been this way. Yes, the advances of technology are coming fast and furious now. There's a lot of complexities, but these are issues that we've wrestled with as a people since time immemorial. The reason that the Hebrew language does not have vowels is that it was not meant to be read. Like literally, it was a complete innovation during the time of, I believe, St. Augustine. He talks about coming upon someone reading without moving their lips or making any sounds, and how mind-boggling that was, because we didn't as a people actually even read in our heads until very recently. All reading was done orally, and before that it was oral traditions of storytelling. And so even the text of the scriptures were designed to be read aloud, so you didn't need vowels because you pretty much knew what the word says and you figured it out as you read it. So there were no spaces between the words. Plato had opinions about the written word because he thought that it would impede memorization, which, as we know, the ancients could memorize whole books. Homer's Odyssey and Iliad and the Aeneid. I don't know about the Aeneid. Sorry, that was the one that came with the Romans. Okay, so the Odyssey and the Iliad, which, okay, if you didn't know this, I was a classics major. We're going on a tiny little tangent, but I cannot help myself right now. We're too close for me to not touch on this. The Iliad and the Odyssey were Homer's books. The Iliad was a book of war, the Trojan War. The Odyssey was a book about Odysseus. It was a man, it was his journey home, and from the Trojan War. And then the Aeneid starts. I sing of arms and a man. Ode at Amo, I think is how it started. I can't quite remember. Poetry. Oh, okay. I'll stop. I promise. I sing of arms and a man. It brings the two traditions together, the two stories together in the story of Aeneas. Okay, so why was I talking about that? Oral. The Iliad and the Odyssey were memorized, hundreds of pages of verse that were memorized, that were spoken in whatever the meter was for that ancient Greek poetry. And the singer would come and sing the songs. It was a communal experience. So we've been wrestling with this technology forever. Okay. So this is Joshua Pauling, fantastic book that he wrote. And one of the things that was in his book that was so profound. So we went in a big, long arc. Now we're back. Okay. Here's why I brought up his book. He speaks at one point in the book about a professor who writes on the board, God is useless. And everybody is deeply offended in the class. God's not useless. I pray to him every day. He helps me through everything. I find him incredibly useful. And she points at the student and says, that's idolatry. When we go to the Lord for what he will give us, then we are using him for our benefit instead of fulfilling man's chief end, our chief purpose in life, to glorify God and to enjoy him forever. To enjoy him. It's from the Westminster Catechism. We are called to enjoy. We're called to love the things we love for what they are. And we can get, especially in our culture that is so laden with information that gives us constant input, the dings and the rings and the notifications, and even just the fact that there is no gap between question and answer. If you're curious about something, for example, yesterday we were visiting with family and there was the question of where did the phrase under the weather come from? Well, even 20 years ago when I was growing up, when you had a question like that, you shared questions around the table. What do you think? Or what do you know? Or have you ever heard anything? Oh, I think I remember somebody saying what that could have come from. Or maybe it's because you start to feel bad when the weather's bad. You just kind of wrestle through the thing, you wonder about it, and the question stays open. If nobody happens to know in the room, the question stays open. Maybe there's someone you call, maybe there's someone you text, maybe you say, I'll have to ask my English teacher the next time we're in here. They know about all kinds of things like that. There's a book in the library that we can open up. Maybe it'll tell us where common idioms come from. But that's all we got. We just have to sit with it. Now, within a minute, Google had the answer for us. And there are things about that that are wonderful. Makes a lot of life easier. But what happens when we let a question sit open? And what do we lose when we don't have that anymore? That wrestling, that pondering, that uncertainty. Think about how satisfying it is to get a question answered after a long search compared to that, like in an instant, we've got it, it's over, we've moved on. What's going to be more salient? What's going to be more memorable? What are we going to truly hold in our minds if we know we're not going to have that answer at our fingertips again? It's not going to be so easy to find. We worked hard to get it. Just a small example. So when we are in the space of viewing all of the information around us for its purpose for us, what do we lose? What happens when we're in this state of constant, well, I've got it. And especially I think believers can really fall prone to this trap because we feel this call from the Lord to continued sanctification. And so we can start to view our time with God as our scheduled personal development time. All right, Lord, I'm going to grow. What do you have for me in this passage? What do you want me to learn? How do you want me to be better? Oh gosh, I see my sin. Okay, Lord, help me grow. He just wants to be with you. In Josh's book, he talks about these different passages in the Psalms. Deep calls out to deep. the sound of your mighty waters. I don't have anything pulled up right now, but think about the Psalms and how there's much that's just poetry, just inviting you to behold, to sit before the Lord and go, look at what you've done. Think of the lavishness in nature. Every time we walk out of our door right now, there's some beautiful little spot in our garden that's just full of blooms, full of flowers, even the clover that everybody else calls weeds. I love it. But we miss it. There's stuff going on in the backyard I'm not even sure about because I don't go back there all that often. Lavish for us to enjoy. So here's your invitation today, friend. I'm inviting you to love the things you love for what they are, without judgment, without any sort of assessment, and especially without utility. Don't love it for what it will give you. I had a fascinating little season around this question. See, my husband and I, we both have a head for business. We both do investments. We love saving. We love, talking about profitability and nerdy stuff, whatever. We like having insurance policies and having wills in place and all of that. We're practical in a lot of ways, even though as a coach, just with my walk with the Lord, I tend more towards emotion. There's still this practical piece. What value does it have? And as most of you know, we own this beach house. What you may not know is it loses money every year right now. That's just where it is. And I know some people feel really uncomfortable talking about money. I like to peel the curtain back because I think that it removes some of the mystery for people. And it also helps take away shame when we choose to walk into stretching spaces and it doesn't go the way we'd hoped. And what I didn't realize when we bought this beach house, when we decided to choose this investment, is that it was a lot more like building a business than simply buying an investment property, which we'd done real estate investment for years. That it took time to get visibility, to get a base of renters and all of that, to have people say, this is our summer spot, we're coming back again. And so over the years, and we haven't had it super long, so we're still building all of this, it's been this source of shame for me. Oh my gosh, it's not cash flow positive yet. It's not cash flow positive yet. And this feeling of tension of, well, we should sell it because it's an investment, but gosh, we love it. But we should sell it because it's an investment and it's not pulling its weight. It's not serving its purpose. It's not a high enough utility. It's not useful enough. Okay. And over the course of about a year, first we had a conversation with our investment guy where he's like, well, what's the long-term plan for this thing? Because on paper, it doesn't make sense. And we said, well, one day we'd like to live out there and we'd like to have our kids come and visit. And maybe that's the grandparent house. And maybe someday we get another property and they can stay or they just come and visit us. When the crew gets too big, we rent another place on the street. And he said, oh, so you love it? And we were like, yeah, of course we love it. We love it. We love being there. We love what it gives our family. We love the experience, the adventure. For Brian and I, it's become almost like having another baby. We go and we so into this space that's been so precious to us. It's like investing in our children. Obviously not at the same level. I get it, right? It's not the same level. It's not a covenant place, but it's become this really special new arc to our life and our family. And he was like, oh, well, then it's not just about the money. And we were like, oh, maybe it's not just about the money. Not that it doesn't matter, but if we're willing to make sacrifices in other places for love of this spot, what if that's okay? Hey, mama, let me ask you a question. When's the last time you gave yourself some white space? I am not talking about a trip to the bathroom alone or even the grocery store. When's the last time you had what I like to call some no one needs me time? For homeschooling entrepreneurs, time like this isn't a luxury. It's actually a key component to a healthy business, homeschool, and family life. So, if you're ready for your next respite, whether it's you by yourself, you and your spouse, or a family trip, join us at our peaceful haven, Just Like Paradise, located on gorgeous Oak Island, North Carolina. This 3-bedroom house is just a short walk to the ocean and nearby restaurants. It has a screened-in back porch with fireplace that is to die for, hot tub, and even a fire pit if you're feeling ambitious. Book through the link in the show notes, and then you have a unique discount code, podcast100, to get a $100 discount on your stay as a thank you for being one of my listeners. Get your next getaway on the calendar today. Where is there something in your life where it feels a little bit indulgent? But when you really get honest with yourself, you love it. You love the thing you love for what it is, not for what it gives you, not for what it provides, not for its usefulness, just for what it is. There's nothing to fix, friend. There's nothing to solve. Let it be. Right? So, too, even with this podcast. And so, this was a conversation with my coach recently. There was a season where the goal behind what was at the time she considers a field, and then, of course, now has become overwhelmed to overcome her, this conversation. The goal was to build some big coaching practice and have all the people come in and do all the things and, daily social media posts and creating content and having calls. And then I decided it was time to take a step back. So into our family. But I love these conversations. I love this little space to share the things that God has taught me over the years. These hard-earned lessons. Some took decades to grab hold of. And I love words. It's like art to me. I kept telling my coach, I'd say, well, this is what it costs to keep things going every month. And I'm not doing anything to grow a business right now. So like, why do I have this? He said, well, why do you have it? I love it. And he laid together the conversation about the beach house, which we'd also, even though we'd started talking about this idea of, well, we love it with our financial advisor a year ago, it takes a while to get things in my thick skull sometimes. So I was still in this place of like, well, we can't justify keeping the beach house. And then now here's this podcast. And what's really interesting is it wasn't just they are not being useful. It hit deeper. And I'm just going to be really honest with you. I'm not being useful. I'm not pulling my weight. It was this deeper feeling of my own inadequacy, because here I am transitioning from, just hang on, babe, I'm growing this business. It's going to be great. I can see where we're going. And I've been doing business for a decade or more. I left law in 2014. Within the year, I was doing a direct sales company. And then there's been one thing or another ever since then, since 2015, one thing or another that brought an income for our family. Always busy, always working, always striving, always performing. Constant motion, even if the result was not at the level I wanted it to be. I always had this idea that what we were trying to get to, that there was some number out there that was just around the corner. And that would be enough. And here's what's so fascinating. We're going places I didn't quite expect in this conversation, but, Lord, just take it where you want it to go. Here's what's so fascinating. This season where I'm performing the least in the worldly sense has been the season where I have felt the greatest sufficiency. There's enough. There's enough. Because I have found a way, through God's grace and kindness, to let my heart be at rest. Now, if you want to know what the trick was, you'll have to go back to the episode from about a month or so ago, to the brave and brokenhearted. It required a hard fall, deep, humbling, radical humiliation and devastation. Through that, I didn't care so much anymore about what the world thought. I knew, I will tell you, I don't even know what all happened through all of that led me to this place of rest. I think I think. And maybe a year from now, I'll have a totally different perspective. But I think that I came face to face with my smallness, my weakness, my inability to control. Because, see, as a business owner, it's like if things went south, I always made it right. Even if it came at a cost to me, no problem, we'll handle it. And I hit against a challenge I could not fix myself. No way. And it was devastating. From that place of actually being useless, coming face to face with my own inability, being utterly powerless to change the circumstances in which I found myself. Somehow, I received the Father's love and grace of other people at a deeper way. And through that, when we receive, truly receive, we can give at a whole new level. We can't give what we haven't received. We just don't have it in us. And we can't gin it up. We want to. I want to be loving and gracious and abundant in all of these things. Generous, thoughtful, joyful, peaceful. And you know what we do? We kind of push the balloon underwater, or the beach ball. You know that visual? Push the beach ball underwater. Oh, I see that selfishness. I'm just going to push it down. It's only when we sit with our own smallness, our weakness, our vulnerability, our sin, and we choose to love ourselves for what we are. We see it in other people and we choose to love them for what they are instead of constantly just another fix, strategy, idea, thought. What are we doing? We're operationalizing our relationships. Yeah, I love you, but once you've shifted this way, I'll love you more. How can we just love? Christ just took the Samaritan woman as she was. He took the dude who was sitting outside, what was it called? The Temple Beautiful or the Pool Beautiful, something beautiful. Do you want to get well? Like, I'm here for it. I'm here for it if you want to get well. I've got you. What do you want? Open hands. Maybe not. Maybe they don't want to get well. Maybe the people we love are okay where they are for now. But we got to love the things we love for what they are. Love the people we love for where they are and who they are. Just today. And as we do that, as we truly take people as they are, things as they are, we can offer this deeper grace, this deeper love, no judgment. So that's what I received. And now I'm in this smaller place, sowing into my people, really seeing the beauty of what's around me. And the crazy thing about it is, the thing I didn't expect is that was actually the path to the abundance and the sufficiency that I'd always been looking for. Finding that it was enough already. Nothing more was needful. I thought I had to reach this higher level. Once I have the clients I want, once I've got the business I want, once there's the revenue that I'm working for, then everything's going to be okay. But it actually took me saying, it's okay now. This is all I want and need. Everything that I have in my hands, this small little life is all I want and need. And then I had to reckon with, am I enough? To let my husband be provider for our family in this season, and for me to actually cost money and not really make it. Can I be useless and still be valuable? What if you gave yourself permission to do the same, friend? And it doesn't I'm not inviting you necessarily to stop working if you're working or whatever it is, but where is that place where you're hustling for your worthiness, as Brene Brown says? Where you are finding your place because of what you bring. I'm just going to invite you to open your hands. Be willing to lay it down. And when I was really willing to engage with that question, is it okay for me to take up space? and not earn it, at least by my quantification of what earning it looks like? Is it okay, by extension, for me to, in this season, pay to share my voice by keeping the podcast going, by continuing this conversation that I value so highly, without holding out my hand and looking for compensation, just to give from a place of abundance and gratitude? And if I, some of that comes down to worthiness, right? Worthy to pay the price, but also believing that the message is worthy. I said for a little while, no one's listening. Here I am talking and talking, no one's listening. I'm sorry, this is, I'm like, Lord, I didn't mean to get this personal. Here we go. I guess that's all I got in these seasons. And then I opened up my little like back office thing that shows downloads and things like that. It's not no one. You're here. Thank you for being here. You're worth it. Just you. And if this message serves you, it's worth it. This time that I'm taking, this conversation that we're having. What a gift. What if we could operate in that much grace and abundance to just say, it doesn't matter. I remember when I started out with podcasting, the Lord said, would you make this podcast for one person? If this could change one person's life? And I very gregariously, yes, Lord, one person. Yes, I'm here for it. And then he said, what if that one person was you? And it was like full stop. I had to revisit that question all over. If that one person is you, friend, yep, here for it all day long. If that one person is me, let's see. If it's it's always, and we talked about this in here, it's always to through. The transformation comes to us so that it can go through us. So it has to be just that one person as just us first before it can even be anybody else. And then through the economy of God, it becomes inevitable that if we open our hands and open our mouths and are willing to share our story, his story through us, that it will change others. He does not waste his sanctification. He does not. But we have to be willing to be so lavish that we go for just one. God does it all the time in scripture. You see what he did for Rahab, sending the whole Israelite spy force in to grab her. Do they really have to do a reconnaissance mission into a city when they're taking the city down by walking around the outside of it? Does it really matter what's going on inside those walls when really the whole battle is won before they even walk in the walls? Now, the like analytical side of me would say, well, okay, but maybe they needed to know the routes around the city once the walls had fallen down. But I like to think they went in for Rahab to pull her into the lineage of Christ because the Lord knew her heart. So too with Ruth. Sent Naomi's whole family. Granted, again, I get it. They were running away from the promised land. They were going into pagan territory. They didn't look like a faithful family, but look how the Lord redeemed and restored. The Lord went and grabbed that Moabite woman. And again, brought her into the lineage of Christ. He's always going out to get the one. What's that thing you're doing where you're like, gosh, is this a waste of time? Is this a waste of energy? None of it is wasted. Why? Because it's for the love. When you're doing the thing for love of the thing, it's actually the love that transforms because God is love. Now, if you're doing it from a place of shoulds and ought tos and bitterness and frustration, root and fruit are not separated. One dictates what the other will be. So I was operating When I was in all my business building, there was a lot of striving. And all the grace. I couldn't do other than where I was. And it takes the suffering to bring the sanctification. And we can't just gin up suffering, except for whatever we create of our own misery, right? Well, we can't, it's like the Lord just weaves the path he weaves. And we have to rest in that and trust the revelation will come when it needs to. In the meantime, we do the best we can with what we have. And then we reach that new level, and it's grace, right? Some of the deepest, most profound lessons I learned came through my father's passing. Could I have made that happen earlier? I sure would. I tried. Endlessly tried. Wanted to. For me, that was when I received the Father's blessing, was at my father's passing. And I knew it was lacking all that time. I felt like an outsider. I felt like, as the adage goes, the redheaded stepchild. I felt like the one that was isolated and unloved. And I knew that wasn't the Father's will for me, but I couldn't manufacture that blessing. He gave it when he gave it. And to him be all the glory. Okay? But when I was in that striving, that frustration, that bitterness, why isn't this growing? Why isn't this better? That scarcity bred more scarcity. And it was only when my heart was broken enough to say, I just can't try anymore. Here I am. Lord, use me as you will. I'm your vessel, broken and brokenhearted. And then that was enough. And now it's enough. We walk forward with offerings that are without utility, perhaps, but they are loved and precious, just like us. So I invite you, friend, just take a look. Where are you looking at something and saying, is it worth it? Can I justify its space in my life? Has it earned its keep? Where are there people in your life that you're looking at through the same lens? If they would just show up differently, if they would just love me better, if they would just not do this behavior that drives me crazy, can we love the things we love for what they are? The brook that can't even offer water, that loved one that can't do anything but offer criticism, that thing that we invested in that isn't giving us what we think it should. Can we just love it and let it be? Today, I just want you to know I love these conversations for what they are. I'm very grateful to be here with you. And I thank you so much for taking the time to listen. If you're here, let me know you're here. How fun would that be? Just shoot me a message, send me an email, find me all the places. I want to know, what are you choosing to love for what it is? And if this is your first time getting a little taste of Robert Frost, other than the one everybody knows, well, there's two: Stopping by Woods on a Snowy Evening. Then, of course, The Road Less Taken, Road Less Traveled, whatever that title is. You know what I'm talking about. Should we read it? Why not? There's so much good Robert Frost out there. You just let me know. The Swinger of Birches. One can do worse than be a swinger of birches. You know what? No, this is where we're ending. You know how to find The Road Less Traveled. I'm going to read you Birches. Talk about loving things we love for what they are. This is one of my favorites. I'm going to leave you here with just this taste of goodness. And then you tell me, do you love Robert Frost? Was this your first invitation to sit and listen to him? Let me know if you want me to give you some other ones, because they're so good. Here's Birches. When I see birches bend to left and right across the lines of straighter, darker trees, I like to think some boy's been swinging them. But swinging doesn't bend them down to stay as ice storms do. Often you must have seen them loaded with ice a sunny winter morning after a rain. They click upon themselves as the breeze rises and turn many-colored as the stir cracks and crazes their enamel. Soon the sun's warmth makes them shed crystal shells, shattering and avalanching on the snow crust, Such heaps of broken glass to sweep away, you'd think the inner dome of heaven had fallen. They are dragged to the withered bracken by the load, and they seem not to break, though once they are bowed so low for so long, they never right themselves. You may see their trunks arching in the woods years afterwards, trailing their leaves on the ground, like girls on hands and knees that throw their hair before them over their heads to dry in the sun. But I was going to say, when Truth broke in with all her matter of fact about the ice storm, I should prefer to have some boy bend them as he went out and in to fetch the cows, some boy too far from town to learn baseball, whose only play was what he found himself, summer or winter, and could play alone. One by one, he subdued his father's trees by riding them down over and over again until he took the stiffness out of them, and not one but hung limp, not one was left for him to conquer. He learned all there was to learn about not launching out too soon and so not carrying the tree away clear to the ground. He always kept his poise to the top branches, climbing carefully with the same pains you use to fill a cup, up to the brim and even above the brim. Then he flung outward feet first with a swish, kicking his way down through the air to the ground. So was I once myself a swinger of breeches, and so I dream of going back to be. It's when I'm weary of considerations. It's when I'm weary of considerations. Anyone else weary of considerations? And life is too much like a pathless wood where your face burns and tickles with the cobwebs broken across it, and one eye is weeping from a twig's having lashed across it open. I'd like to get away from Earth a while and then come back to it and begin over. Anyone else? May no fate willfully misunderstand me and half grant what I wish and snatch me away not to return. Earth's the right place for love. I don't know where it's likely to go better. I'd like to go by climbing a birch tree and climb black branches up a snow white trunk toward heaven, till the tree could bear no more, but dipped its top and set me down again. That would be good, both going and coming back. One could do worse than be a swinger of birches. That's just for the love of the poem. Friend, one could do worse than be a swinger of birches. Let's love the things we love for what they are. Okay? Looking forward to hearing from you. So grateful for this conversation. And until next time, as always, I can't get away from it. I'll just keep saying it. You have got this because he's got you. Okay? All right. Friend, thank you so much for listening to this most recent episode of Overwhelmed to Overcomer. So listen, the whole idea behind this mission is that when we endeavor to be brave with our lives, we need to do it together. Belonging is key. So if you resonated with the message from this episode, share it with a friend. Do it together. Thank you again. And never forget, you've got this because he's got you.